On a vast, sunny meadow, a colony of diligent ants was hard at work. Day in and day out, they gathered seeds and grains, stocking their nest for the leaner times ahead. Their home was a marvel of engineering, a bustling city built just beneath the soft earth. But their hard work was constantly under threat. A flock of sparrows had made the meadow their home, and they had discovered the ants' treasure trove. Every day, these feathered thieves would swoop down, snatching the grains right from the ants' mandibles. The colony's supplies dwindled with each raid. The head worker ant grew more desperate with every passing day. He watched his fellow ants toil tirelessly, only to see their efforts stolen in an instant. The frustration was immense. "We can't go on like this," he declared to his council. "We need to do something, and we need to do it now." The colony had tried everything they could think of. They built tiny barricades. They tried to move grains, only at night. They even tried to fight back, but the sparrows were too big, too fast, and too numerous. The ants were at their wits' end. Driven by desperation, the head worker ant decided to look for a more powerful solution. He ventured away from the nest, searching for an ally. His search led him to the edge of a thicket where a truly enormous caterpillar resided. This wasn't just any caterpillar. It was massive, with a tough-looking exterior that seemed almost armored. It moved slowly, but with a certain intimidating confidence. Seeing its size, the ant thought, surely this creature could scare away this. Gathering his courage, the head worker ant approached the giant caterpillar. "Oh, mighty one," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "My colony is in grave danger. Sparrows are stealing all our food. We are industrious and have a large store of the finest grain. If you can help us, if you can drive these birds away, we will reward you generously. We will share our best supplies with you." He laid out the proposal, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. This was his big, bold plan, a quick fix for their persistent problem. The caterpillar paused its munching on a leaf and turned its many eyes toward the tiny ant. It listened patiently to the ant's desperate plea. After a long moment, the caterpillar spoke in a low, rumbling voice. "Yes, I can help you," it confirmed. "I can secrete a fluid from my skin. The smell is so foul that no bird will dare come near this place." The head worker ant's spirit soared. A solution. A real solution. But then, the caterpillar added a warning. "However, Auntie must think this through very carefully. Every action has a reaction. Are you certain this is the path you wish to take? Consider the consequences." But the head worker ant was blinded by the immediate crisis. The sparrows, the stolen grain, the daily struggle, that was all he could see. The caterpillar's warning sounded like abstract philosophy, a distant concern compared to the very real threat of starvation. Consequences. The only consequence he cared about was getting rid of the sparrows. Yes, of course," he said impatiently. "We'll take our chances. Anything is better than this. We agree to your terms." He didn't want to think. He just wanted the problem gone. The deal was struck. True to its word, the caterpillar began its work. It lumbered over to the area surrounding the ant nest and started to crawl in slow, deliberate circles. As it moved, a thick, oily fluid oozed from its skin, releasing a truly horrific stench into the air. The smell was acrid and pungent, a putrid odor that clung to everything. The next morning, as the sparrows descended for their daily raid, they were hit by the wall of stink. They chirped an alarm, banked sharply in midair, and fled, never to return. The air around the nest was finally clear of the feathered menace. A great cheer went up from the ant colony. They had won. The head worker ant was hailed as a hero. He had found a protector, a guardian who had solved their biggest problem in less than a day. The ants could now work in peace, their food supply secure. As promised, they brought out a large portion of their finest grain and presented it to the caterpillar. The giant creature settled in nearby, a permanent, foul-smelling bodyguard for the grateful colony. The ants celebrated their newfound security, believing their troubles were finally over. But their joy was tragically short-lived. Days turned into weeks, and a new, more sinister problem began to emerge. The caterpillar's foul-smelling fluid which had so effectively repelled the sparrows, was also a potent poison. It seeped into the soil around the ant nest, turning the once fertile earth toxic and barren. The small plants and weeds that grew near the nest, which had always served as a secondary food source for the colony, began to wither and die. The ground became a dead zone. And that wasn't the worst of it. While the odor drove away the birds, it acted as an irresistible beacon for another type of creature. From all corners of the meadow, a new swarm began to gather. Dung beetles, hundreds, then thousands of them, drawn by the powerful, decomposing smell that they found so appealing. They descended upon the area in a massive, buzzing, clicking horde. The caterpillar, their supposed guardian, was of no concern to them. They simply crawled over and around it, entirely undeterred. This new invasion was a catastrophe far worse than the sparrows had ever been. The dung beetles were not interested in stealing grain from the surface. They were diggers. They began to burrow into the ground with relentless energy, their powerful legs tearing through the carefully constructed tunnels of the ant colony. Chambers collapsed, storage rooms were breached, and the entire structure of the nest began to crumble. The beetles swarmed through the ruined passages, consuming everything in their path, including the grain that had been contaminated by the caterpillar's toxic secretion. The head worker ant watched in horror as his home was destroyed from within. The very ground beneath their feet was caving in. The colony was in chaos. Their hard-earned supplies were gone, and their nest was being torn apart. It was in that moment of total devastation that the terrible realization dawned on him. The caterpillar's warning echoed in his mind. Consider the consequences. He had been so focused on solving one problem, the sparrows, that he had failed to see the bigger picture. He had traded a manageable thief for a toxic environment and an unstoppable wrecking crew. His quick fix, the solution he had embraced with such impatient eagerness, had not saved his colony. It had doomed it. The sparrows were a problem, yes, but the poisoned soil and the destructive dung beetles were an apocalypse. The desire for a simple, immediate answer had led directly to their complete and utter demise. The final, bitter lesson was clear. Never rush for a quick fix without understanding the full, complex system you are a part of. Sometimes, the cure you seek is a far greater disaster than the disease you are trying to escape. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that makes you think. See you next time.